what would those things be? That would be, are there any of those that would be higher than that first one? And I proposed in that email the other day that all of us here have, I mean, there's a great brain trust and a lot of talent here, and that is a terrific thing, a unique thing. And yet there are things that certain kinds of artists can do which cost very little. Let's get some canvas, let's get some oils and brushes, and there we go. You know, several $100, but it's several $100, not several million. And we're in kind of a unique art form that even in the modern day here, it still costs a fair bit of money to accomplish our art. So funding becomes a very important issue. I brought an interesting thing, and has anybody seen this before? You know what that is?
Is it MMOVI?
Yeah. It's a rebranding is what it is. It's a rebranding because 3 years ago, their funds dried up. Their funds dried up because donors were not thrilled. And they said, well, we don't like the direction you're going. They kicked everybody out with the top management and put new ones in. And the top guy wrote this and put it out. It's clearly a statement saying, please donate to us because we're under new management, we're doing great things, and help us out.
Part of what I understood happened there was that the brethren had said, we've gotten this channel all over the world, 95% of coverage in the world, and yet it's not being watched.
Mm-hmm.
You got to change your content.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved in that direction, did granite flats, did all kinds of pretty much secular, non-religious kinds of things. And I'm not certain how they did on getting the audience, but then now it sounds like they lost their donors. So
Is that when they brought God's Walker in?
No, it's when they kicked Scott.
What?
they kicked him out.
That's when they kicked him out. I started to say that. Scott's a great guy, but he was pushed out for this to come out.
He was lifted up when he tried to get that outreach.
We were just doing the granite flat.
Yes.
So
yes.
what I'm getting at here is that there are, and here's the takeaway from this. They have their mission and all of that, and I met with some of the people there. It was an interesting thing. Another producer guy set up a meeting and said, Robert, I set up a meeting. They need to know you. And so I go out there and meet with them, as these people. And they said, well, and I pitched an idea for two. And they said, well, that sounds interesting, but we don't do that. Our audiences are 8 to 15 years old. That's it.
Uh-huh.
Our audience. And so are their
Wow,
parents.
you know, the phone viewing is what they call it.
Yeah.
But
So that's the direction they're headed. So what about people, now there are a whole lot of members of the church, others as well, who have funds and want to leave a legacy. And the legacy they want to leave, I mean, there's many different things, buildings and businesses and all of that, but they also want to leave something that makes a difference, that moves people, that grabs hearts and minds and takes them on a journey and brings about insight and I'm not talking necessarily educational, but great entertainment that has meaning in that order. Great entertainment that has great emotion, well done on that film. And that has meaning behind it as well. That's what we're all about. So the people are out there that have fun. So I would suggest that one of the key elements is all of us, as a brain trust, as visionaries, are wanting to see if we can get our funds, our projects funded, and make things happen. And each of us individually are right now where we're at because we haven't done this before. So let's go the next step, big step, and put our heads together. Now,
did anybody read the
article I gave you, Keith Merrill wrote on finding the LDS patron saints. If you haven't read it, it's really a good article. It talks about how the patron saints that perhaps could be helping fund some important things ought to be thinking about that.
He's over in China, I thought, doing some stuff. Pete Merrill, I thought he was in China doing some.
If he is, he's stuck there, right?
Why did you talk to
I was on a call with a fellow who called me from Geneva, Switzerland, and they are putting together funds on a project for me. And he called me and said, we're making good progress here and all that, but he's been there for 2.5 months. He went end of February and thought he'd be back in a week and a half. He's stuck. So, I would suggest, if there's some way we can kind of be of cooperation or help, I think in terms of hopefully funding at some point for hopefully several projects, that would be really good. Now, a lot of, we touched on this last time, that if you, the fellow who had come from Texas and came to Utah and wanted me to do a $30 million film, and he didn't have a script or anything, he said, I just can pull the funds together on it. And I had said, let's do 10 at an average 3, and then you can count on half of them not making any money, and then the percentage is there, and hedge your bet. It would be marvelous if it weren't just one small film funded out of our brain trust here, but several. I say smart because not all the eggs are in one basket then. What a great thing that it could be. And the brain trust is here.
Out of the 10, let's say 3 are successful, they can help fund the other.
Yeah. So, I would suggest that as a main purpose here. I would suggest a second main purpose for our group, and that it would be that there are functions each one of us have that we need others to help out with. So I'm a director, but I can't do it all myself. I mean, I've done one-man bands. I don't like that. But I've also done larger projects, and I need producers and a lot of writing, development, scriptwriters, elements there. So I think we can be of help to you, is what I'm saying. And the best producer I would like on a film that I'm directing would be somebody who really understands directing and can be supportive and helpful in that. And I likewise can do that for somebody else. I don't have to direct everything I do. And so I can happily support and help somebody else whose vision it is, their vision, to make their film, and I can be able to support to that. Jerry Mullen, chatting with him, meeting with him, and he had given a talk to a group, and I talked with him after a bit. But one of the comments he made was that he talked about he had been the producer of, I think, 8 Spielberg films. And so he spoke of Spielberg as a maestro. I like that. And so as a director background, I could be a producer to help somebody else, or on the producing team. I mean, I don't mean souls, but might have 3 producers or 2 or 3 associates or co-producers or something. You need a team. And I'd be happy to help someone else do my story. And editing, mighty important. Mighty important. So
That's my forte.
that's
Sounds good.
every film is created 3 times: the writing, the directing, the editing. Each is on creation. So we can be helpful to each other. I think that's tremendously valuable. The reason I was suggesting the name Visionaries is because that's how we want potential funders to understand us. There are many other terms we could use, but what do we want them to see us as? We're bringing about their vision of a legacy, of something meaningful, something impactful emotionally for the audience, but also carries meaning. And who are the people who do that? The people who see it, who are visionary. So, anyway, I've talked several things out there, and here we are as a brain trust. Let me just say one other thing, and then we'll go around here a little bit. It's interesting to look at a great, a highly successful film in years back, and find out that the writer-director shopped it around the studios and got rejected many times. And you just look back and you say, really? I wonder what happened to the person who rejected them in the 20th century, who rejected them Universal and such. And then I found out what the script looked like when he was shopping it around. It looked really dumb. Or it looked really weak in certain ways. And then went out and directed it and shot it and sat down with 3 or 4 friends, screened a rough cut of it, and they said, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, you need to change this, you need to change that. And he worked with them, and they worked with him. And they threw out certain scenes that had already been written and shot that were not helping, and they reworked some other scenes, and okay, instead of getting cameras and everybody back, let's just take this wide shot right here and do some different dialogue completely to put it in the plan, cut out these close-ups, and that will take care of what we need for this part. And put it all together. I'm talking about Star Wars. And George, and he sat down, you know the story? Sat down with, he invited Stephen, and Stephen had a few comments there, but it was Brian De Palma more than anybody, who said, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, change this, and here's what I suggest. Including the title, because it was never called Star Wars at the beginning. And the rest is history. So, I'm not saying that's a terrific example of the film we all want to make, but it certainly did well financially. And it was a brain trust that stepped in and helped him. Otherwise, it would have been a big failure. And you look at what Ed Catmull has done. I'll tell you, that is great thinking, all of this. You tell me that. Did you know that? Yeah. And so, you ought to read the book if you haven't already, because here's our brain trust. Here is our brain trust. I would be delighted to get feedback.
Let's have some comments from the other folks here. What are some of your thoughts? Particularly if you know, I spent a long time, and apologize for how long the email was I sent to everybody, and to those that did not get it, I can send it to you later. I went into some history and some stuff about other groups and things. Were there some new things that maybe surprised or resonated or give you some ideas, a springboard kind of thing for anybody?
It seems to me that there are divergent purposes in terms of us getting together. Robert, I sense that you are looking to develop an association like an Alma kind of a situation, where maybe a revised contemporary approach to Alma. And Robert, I almost get the sense that you're looking at, as we talk about the brain trust, or we talk about co-funding opportunities, or how we're going to make them, it almost sounds like a company approach, like you're developing the idea for the Visionaries company. And I'm not sure that those two ideas can coexist in the same space, if that makes sense. I think they have different purposes for meeting, and I think defining or deciding why we're meeting is really an important thing to do. What is our purpose? Why are we here? Obviously for the association, but beyond that association, what is our reason? And I think that's really helpful to put that down right away so we have a good understanding of
maybe I could give a perspective on that. In one of our early Allen meetings, I can't remember if it was Keith Merrill or someone else who said, you know, when I'm with my elders forum or my gospel doctrine class, whatever, we have a group that I can really relate to on a spiritual level, and we have these wonderful gospel-oriented discussions and everything. And then when I'm with other filmmakers and in a professional situation, I have a certain rapport and a certain way of relating to them. He says, but in this kind of and we were talking about Alma at that time, he says, in this venue, in this sort of a situation, I can bring together both of those. And I can be the person that I am in both worlds with people of like mind. And that's the thing that makes it so exciting and so wonderful. And to me, I woke up this morning at about 6:30 and couldn't get back to sleep, and wrote about 3 or 4 pages of notes. Things are just coming very fast. And I was thinking, okay, if we form a group here, similar to Alma, whatever, what is the emphasis? What is the things that we might want to do? And I'll just throw out a few ideas here and you can respond to it. But first and foremost was fellowship. Because, and as I wrote in the thing about Alma, the area, and this is particularly true outside of Utah. And this is one thing that we found. The difference between Alma in Los Angeles and Alma in Utah was that in Los Angeles, as a Latter-day Saint, the media, you're kind of like all alone out there. And so you're excited about the idea of fellowship with people who have like interests. In Utah, at least half the people working yes, probably. And so you don't have that same outlook or yearning or desire or whatever. But still, the idea of fellowshipping and networking, I think, is a key thing. I still get excited every year when I go to the LDS Film Festival and have those kinds of, and I wish Kells was here. He sent me a text just as I was arriving and said that he had a family thing that came up and he was looking forward to being with us. But the LDS Film Festival and the panel discussions that we have, I don't care that much about the film, but the panel discussions and things that we have there are always, really exciting opportunities to visit. But the spiritual strengthening that can come at the crossroads of our faith and our profession. And because I think all of us agree that, Heavenly Father has given us talents and abilities, and we have a responsibility to Him to use those talents and abilities in a way that will be pleasing to Him and will help build the kingdom. And by coming together in association, we can generate the synergy and cross-pollination amongst us. So for me, the most important thing is the fellowship and the synergy that is created because of that. Now, I thought of some of the things that we could do as a group or whatever, areas of emphasis. One is to help each other as far as professional development. Everybody has learned something that they can all share with others, and that's one area. Service projects where we can come together and do things of a nature like that. I gave everybody last time a DVD of the LDS Film Festival. The LDS Dance Festival in the Rose Bowl, Pasadena. That was kind of an example of a service project where I was able to bring together an all-volunteer crew of about 55 media professionals to generate this television special on the dance festival, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And it was a labor of love for everybody, and it was marvelous. And the reason that I was able to do that is because of the associations that I developed with Alma. And it sort of leads to that. As far as we can do film screenings and critiques, just as activities, things to do. And I think that one of the aspects is like, did you know? Now, I've been around for a long time in this, but there's a lot of young people especially that have never seen things like Right Hand Drive or Go Toward the Light or the 1950s movie Blood Arrow, Corey Anton. And I'm thinking of screenings that we could hold of classic films with an LDS bent or whatever, and a discussion that would go beyond the usual Q&A that you have at a film festival or whatever, where we can talk about the meaning and stuff. Anybody ever hear of Blood Arrow? It was made in the 50s, black and white Western, about a gunslinger who was hired to help these Mormon settlers get some medicine or serum or whatever to an isolated valley or whatever. And not people have never heard of it, but some of the fascinating things that we held. We rented a 35 millimeter print and projector and whatever, and did a screening of it, whatever. It was really fun. But the did you know sort of thing, that as a group we could sponsor things that would help people understand and learn about things they never knew about before. Have table readings of screenplays. Have things with actors, whatever. I'll put this in another epic email rather than taking a lot of time now. I'm very conscious of everybody's time here. This is a high-powered group, and everybody's time is very valuable. And there's a lot of great stories you can tell, whatever, but I feel like our time here can best be spent thinking, okay, what do we want to do as an organization? Look at the other organizations, like the LDS Film Festival, the LDS PMA, the Whitaker Society, Life Universe and Everything. The Utah Film Commission has a couple events every year. Motion Picture Association of Utah, the Utah Women in Film and Television. There are elements, things that are doing, and what I want to do is go through and list what all of those are already doing. And then say, if we form a group here, what can we do that would augment that rather than compete or whatever and fill in the blanks and invest in it?
The reason why I came up with MMOVI, the movie group, is because I think by and large, I think most of us are here because we want to make movies, And so I like Visionaries, but I have a concept here, maybe Visionaries within the movie group. We're still the movie group because that's our goal, to make movies.
Yeah.
But we're visionaries within that group, within that group.
Well, one reason I wanted to kind of think in terms of expanding beyond just movies, and somebody suggested maybe instead of movie makers a vision, how about media makers?
Yeah, I would think.
Because all the media, in the category of did you know, anybody ever heard of the 1973 album that the Osmonds put out called The Plan? Anybody ever heard of that? Okay. It was an album that they put out with basically gospel-oriented songs. And it wasn't movies, but it was media.
Right.
And it was something that would, I think, fit into some of the discussion that we're having here. There was also, back in the late 70s, anybody ever hear of the first that I know of LDS rock group called the Sons of Mosiah? Anybody ever hear of that?
You're way back, right?
Were there 2,000 people in that?
Alan Cherry was an LDS black comedian guy. The group was organized by a guy named Lynn Bryson, who started with a song that he recorded and was very popular at BYU called BYU Boy Missionary. And that expanded into this group called the Sons of Mosiah. And they had a guy who was a convert to the church. He's been with a group called MMOVI. It was popular back in the 70s or whatever. But the Sons of Mosiah was as far as I know, the first LDS rocker. So there's a lot beyond just movie making, I think. And that's why I thought maybe the idea of media makers of vision and inspiration.
Well, to have coherent discussions, if somebody's talking about music, most of us have nothing to contribute and we would just be, bored. Or if somebody was talking about art, we have to have one focus. And that's why I think movies ought to be a focus, because that's something we all have in common. And,
I would
if
say,
we talk about
documentaries, they could be
TV shows, documentaries, it's all
but movies are, I think, the focus. I believe anyway.
Certainly, media brings all the other
Business outliers,
Yeah,
it's
it's
what it needs to be as well.
I like the focus of movies.
well, what I had suggested, maybe here's something for each of you, but what I was suggesting is that Visionaries is kind of a subset of Alma. And Alma is the larger, or movies, or whatever, is the welcoming larger group. And the fellowship and friendship and all of that, like Alma was years back. But then the subset of that are people who are visionary, who are developing scripts, who are attacking talent, seeking funding, and pulling them together, and then having table reads, and having feedback and brain trust input, and then going out and making films and getting feedback.
I think we can invite experts. I would love to get the green light lady from UVU, that Dennis listened, who went to me?
Tracy Hayward.
Yeah, Dennis Listenby has talked about, he came through here, talked about her, and bring in those kind of experts, because we're filmmakers, eventually want, like you, Robert said, we want to eventually make movies, right? But there's a process.
Yeah.
And if we can learn some of these processes, I don't know about the process of greenlighting, and she does. She came from LA. Dennis says she's great. She knows the whole process. She can come in and you can bring her in as an expert into our group.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things I think we want to set up and focus on that, and so that we can use this synergy of this group to get to these projects we want to get funded. Multiple projects, not just one or two, multiple projects using the group's synergy.
For example, Keith Merrill, let's get him in here. He's had some major Hollywood hits. How did he do it?
Pick their brain.
Pick their brains. How did he do it? So, who would not want to be a part of a group that has Keith Merrill come and tell him how he did it?
It's done. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these people, it may not come, but we can certainly invite them. We can show them what art for us is, and they can realize, hey, these guys are serious. They're visionaries. They want to make good projects with vision and inspiration. That's why the MMOVI was the base of this theme. Movie makers of vision and inspiration. So if they see, gosh, they're bringing together all these creative talent, let's help them out. They may even become part of this, who knows? But I think we need to dissect what the processes are that can help us. Now, some of us have already been through it. Derek, you've been through the process of making movies. You've made 3 or 4, right? And we can learn from you. We can learn from each of us. I don't know what everybody else has done in their makers,
You make a good point, Ed, that before 2 weeks ago, most of the people here I didn't know. And none of us knew who else was working in the business. And so for the value here, just seeing everybody, there's probably 100, 200 people out there who would love to attend a meeting like this with Keith Merrill or something. But I think that, while I agree that film making Utah County the center of film production in the world would be a wonderful goal, but Right now, what I'd like to see is us have consistent meetings with value, practical value, coming away from it, demonstrate that this group can execute and deliver. You know, it's always nice to talk about, you know, ultimately, we want to make the celestial kingdom. You have to start on a practical side. I mean, Dennis, you've talked to me, you know, there's 100 in Hollywood for people who are making good stuff, but they don't know where do they go. And the State Film Commission saying that, well, if you're coming to us with another film festival, we don't want to talk to you. But if you got something that will help in professional development, we want to hear about this. Because there isn't, you know. And we don't even have a director, a phone director or anything to say who's doing what. You can't tell you.
So maybe I could respond a little bit. I really do like the idea of seeing focus, one kind of a thing. And even in the church, there's a lot of talk, as Elder Bednar is saying, and he says, our problems have come because we split stuff up. We need to have one focus. And so then they talk about it's salvation, exaltation, everything works towards that. And the other thing is how to think about our LDS background. Dave knows that I've talked to him over the years. I am incredibly excited about our LDS background, but I don't want to do things that are just local. I want to do things that are local, that are international. And then so Catmull is a really great example of somebody doing that. And you listen to him and you listen to his people, and it's just loaded with LDS kinds of things running through it that makes it work. For example, the university in the middle of Pixar Studios, where everybody from a staff person can learn stuff. So that every job they do, they know enough that they can help contribute. So that you have a ward council, everybody's working on different things, but they each know enough about everything that they can help it along. And that's why I think if we have a focus, and the focus that I think we need to have is the whole process, from script development, through production, through distribution, and that whole thing. We gotta have that whole thing. But now, not everybody is working on that. Different people are working on different aspects of that thing. And so what we need is a council that gets together. I am less excited about bringing in experts to teach us. I am more interested in saying, what are you working on? Tell us what it is you're doing, just like in the Word Council. This is what I'm working on. And then everybody else says, oh, well, I can help you with this, and you can help me with this, and that's how everybody moves along. As long as we have the picture in here, you know, I was telling Doug that I was at BYU and working in the philosophy department, but also then got another degree in the film department. And sometimes they would say that anybody who tells students that they can actually make movies are naughty. That was, I forget what her name was. She would say that kind of thing. Dean Duncan said that kind of stuff too. And I'm saying, then don't have the program. If you're gonna teach people to do this kind of stuff, you better teach them how to do it. And they brought John Lee in, who was a brilliant guy, and then kind of booted him out. He was in teaching production and stuff. And he says, we really can do this. So I am concerned, how do we help people live normal lives with families and productive, where they have the values of a normal kind of life, and make money on this thing, okay? And we've got to keep both those things there, together. So, so I've been thinking about this stuff a lot, as Dave knows, and we're connecting with the guy at UCLA. His name is Richard Walter, who teaches runs the graduate program down at UCLA in screenwriting, and he likes our stuff. He wrote his master's thesis on the persecution of the Mormons because it reminded him of the persecution of the Jews, and he's a Jew. And anyway, so he's going to send his students stuff, and we've got a site put together. These scripts are going to come through. They're going to be vetted. They're going to use high standards on the thing. And then we're creating a list of distributors, about 100 with contact information. A lot of investors should not go near a project unless they've got a distributor on board. That's professional. Right. That is John Lee would use to pound into the student's head. Don't work on a film until you got distribution figured out. That's how professionals do it. Don't just make it and then take it to a festival. Don't do that. So anyway, a long list of all these investors, and then they will have no, the distributors, they will know investors around. And then we have to push a certain kind of direction. There's a guy on the internet now, and he's pushing it, the idea of how to raise funding. And his face comes up every place you go going around, like Box Office Mojo, wherever he's over there too, you know. The basic idea is to say, why does this film need to be made? Why? Say it, why it needs to be made. Then figure out the kinds of investors that would be interested in supporting something like that. Because investors in film, they like the jazziness of helping with films, but they also want to know that they're going to get a return on investment. So then you got to make a case. You've got a distributor on board, comparables will make this kind of stuff, and you've got to make that kind of a case. And all of that case can be built, and you can make it. And what I would say strongly is I don't want to see just local kinds of things, LDS. I don't want to see that.
We totally see that. You missed our first meeting.
But
Our first meeting, Dennis, was about, we don't want to just do that. We want to go broad.
But I want to do it in an LDS way. We know how to do this. We know how to organize. And that's something else. We know how to do that. We got all the background on how to run the right kinds of councils, and have the right kind of focus. And we can do that. We got to go national. So when I heard that we were involved with infomercials and that kind of stuff, my mind was thinking like this: okay, what is the direction that filmmaking is going to go? It's going to go towards. It is going towards independent investors and things, companies, individuals. That's why you've got to make the case for why this is a great film, and it's about, I don't know, it's about autistic children, so the autistic society, people that have autistic children. You've got to find those groups of people. You've got to find out who's making the ads for these big companies. It's moving in the direction that television once was, where you had the Gilco Hour. And this program is brought to you by a generous grant from Ford Motor Company, who da-da-da-da-da-da. That's the direction it's going to go. We got to be able to come up with great scripts that have an appeal, that it needs to be made, and then tap those people that have it. Who can find those people that have that? Companies that are creating commercials, that are savvy about creating commercials and have values of a certain kind. Those are the ones that we need to tap into. So there's some direction of connecting with an infomercial kind of company and finding those right kinds of investors and making sure that all of this is packaged with distributors.
Very good.
Last meeting, this is really good to hear you say all this. Last meeting, one of the things we did is went around the room and what projects are you working on? What scripts do you have? And you mentioned what you then gave us a 10-minute preview on, which was
Dark Highway.
very well done. And by the way, it makes a great case for Second Amendment as well. Because what's the audience left wanting to have happen? And so you got that other film as well. And I mentioned some, who else mentioned? Garrett, you mentioned you had, did we hear from you? Because we need to hear from each person here what projects you have, or in development, what you're contemplating, what films you have that have to be made and why. And so I want to hear from each of you as well. Dennis, you want to?
Can we just wrap up what Dennis said before we do that?
Okay.
I really like what Dennis said. By the way, did you go to film school back in the late 80s?
Somewhere in there. See, I was a philosophy professor.
Yeah, but you also went to film school. I remember.
And then I went to film school and got a PhD there, worked with Lee Duncan and everybody over there. Yeah.
Yeah, you
And then I made,
black back
and then I produced the first feature film out of BYU, and that really bothered those guys because it didn't get out of the film department.
What was it called?
It was called Fire Creek.
Huh.
And so
Yeah.
we had
Yeah,
billboards.
it's a feature film.
And not from VRA, it's from the Velocity Department.
So then they started producing a little more feature-length films, and then the administration said, no, that costs too much, let's close that.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
anyway, I think just to wrap up the focus, I like what Dennis said about the focus ought to be the whole process. of filmmaking, because we can all contribute to that, we can all help out. I see that. I also see the connections that we make can help each other. Just connections alone. For example, Garrett sent me over a contact for Samuel Goldman, and that's a great addition to what I'm already planning on doing as far as finding a distributor for this film before I finish it. So I've already received benefits from just barely having a meeting 2 weeks ago. So, see what I'm saying? So the fact that we make connections and we can share knowledge and contacts and information and all that stuff is very valuable. Talk about the whole process all the way through and help out on every stage as a group. That's another very valuable thing that I see. But there needs to be an ultimate goal. And that quote from President Kimball, Spencer W. Kimball, was awesome. That's like an end goal. Do you have that somewhere you can read
That
that?
could be like our
Listen to this.
mission statement.
This is like a mission
It's
statement.
like a mission statement.
Yeah. Ultimately, in this film I'm working on right now is a stepping stone to get there. This film I'm working on right now doesn't get there, but it's a stepping stone to eventually get there. But this quote,
This is,
We read it last meeting.
yeah, I have it.
It came from this, a gospel vision of the arts that President Kimball gave at BYU, and it was in the Ensign, July 77. And I attached it to the email, I think there's the whole thing. But the quote that I had was...
It's in the body of that, right?
It's in the body of it. I had represented a couple of it. One part of it says, for years, I've been waiting for someone to do justice in recording and song and story and painting and sculpture the story of the restoration with the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, the apostasies, the inter-revolutions, counter-revolutions, etc. It says, it remains for inspired hearts and talented thinkers yet to reveal themselves. The full story of Mormon has never been written or painted or sculpted or spoken. They must be faithful, inspired, active church members to give life and feeling and true perspective to a subject so worthy. Such masterpieces should run for months in every movie center, cover every part of the globe in the tongues of the people, written by great artists, purified by the best critics. And it goes on to...
So I think we could summarize that.
Yeah.
And it's basically
Could be our mission statement. Something.
the gospel. I mean, if we want to do Heavenly Father's work, then we want to spread the gospel to the whole world. And I gave a great example last week of one of my clients that flew here from New Jersey that said, he started asking questions about the Mormons. Who are they? And we were driving back from lunch, and I started talking to him a little bit about the Book of Mormon and so forth, and he said, wow, that's pretty impressive. And then he said, your church needs to do a lot better marketing because me and everybody else, they have no idea about this stuff. So anyway, I think that our main goal ultimately should be to do Heavenly Father's work. And that is to spread the gospel to the whole world, and eventually our films need to do that. Exactly what President Spencer W. Kimball is saying right here. They need to reach out, tell the gospel message, maybe not directly. Like I mentioned also, I have my third film. My third film I want to do is like a plan of salvation where people on one world are going to go to another world and inhabit bodies there and live out a life completely different than the ones they had before. It's just a nice peaceful world to a crazy world where there's death and murder and pain that they've never experienced. It's the plan of salvation, but it could make a great movie.
Right.
Well, there's
And I
some,
think we've got the
You know-
example like Orson Scott Card doing films that really do have LDS themes in there.
well,
And then others are doing it, like Coco. And the missionaries need to be having meetings about Coco and say, I'm going to tell you about what's going on in this movie. Or Orson Scott Card's movies. That's what we need, is the ability to make movies that are not necessarily directly about the church, but in terms of theme, that's what they're about.
Right.
And anybody who's LDS sees that.
Yeah.
It just jumps out at them.
Well,
Well, it is
it's,
on
it's
camera.
flooding the market with ideas that may be new to somebody else, that all of a sudden, you know, when you're talking to them later, or when they meet the missionaries, you're like, that resonates.
Yes.
I believe in
it's
that.
like
That's-
a voice speaking out of the dust, a familiar
Yes.
spirit that
Yeah.
you've heard that concept somewhere before, so that when you encounter it in the gospel context, it resonates with you.
Yes.
Yes.
And
I
that's
think you need
good
to look
film.
carefully, though, at the purpose for what we're here for, because we're not the church. Our mission isn't to spread the gospel to all the world as this organization, that's the church. And as an artist, my desire, my personal mission statement, much like you, Doug, is that I want to use my art to spread the gospel. But in order for me to do that, I have to be really good at what I do. And the purpose of this organization, I don't think, should be to spread the gospel. The purpose of this organization should be to help each of us as filmmakers be the best we can be, so that then we can take the art that we have to use that to tell the stories that resonate with us individually and with those that are beyond this room. And so we have to be careful when we mix the message of President Kimball, which I fully endorse and believe in, with the purpose of our organization, which is probably more to help us be better at what we do, so that we can then carry out President Kimball's.
Well,
I would say that every film that we touch ought to have deep gospel thematic elements in it. If it doesn't have it, it's not worth spending time on. So I can say that, and I could go through, 100 different films, 1,000 different films maybe, that have those elements in there. That's what we have to have. That's what will make it commercial, and it will sell, because it's got those kinds of things in
Universal
it.
themes.
But I think
It
where
is, from our roots.
he's coming from is that that's not how you get to a good story.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people will ask me who my favorite Mormon filmmaker is, and I'll often say, no offense, Mary, but I'll say Don Bluth. And people are shocked because they don't think Don Bluth is a Mormon filmmaker because he doesn't make movies about Joseph Smith.
all dogs go to heaven.
Dogs go to heaven, yes.
All Dogs Go to Heaven, Land Before Time, An American Tale. The thing is he tells stories that resonate with him, and because Mormonism was his background, his core beliefs and stuff, I feel like those truths are embedded in there
That's
and,
right.
and are present, but aren't necessarily hitting the audience over the head of him
Right.
saying, I want you to be
Don't
this.
ever,
Right,
don't ever.
but
Yeah,
I
it never
believe,
works.
and this goes back to Aristotle and to Richard Walter, who's a big Aristotle fan, is that the theme needs to be based upon the character development. You've got to have character development. And the direction that character is developing brings out a theme. And then you're going to get your integrated scripts that have a plot with a character development that you see, and it points towards a theme. You're not driving it with a theme, you got to drive it with your action, which shows character and character changing along the way.
I'm really glad to hear all of this.
Character arc,
Yes,
character arc.
it points towards a theme.
When
And I slide Keith Merrill now and then on this too. He did the 12 dogs that saved
Christmas.
Christmas, yes. What he had was a girl in there who lied. And she was trying to save the dogs in the city from the dog catchers, okay? He had a character arc where she stops lying by the end. Well, that's nice, but it was disconnected from her activity of this action of saving the dogs. It should have been connected. So he did the obligatory thing and fit it in, but it didn't connect in the right way. It's the character development that opens the pathway for you accomplishing your task or giving it up. It's got to be all integrated. So
I just want to say one more thing, and that is that I want to learn more about character development and learn about character arcs so that when I write my stories, I can embed those kinds of things in my screenplays. But as a group here, is that why we're here? Is to help each other to be better? And if that's the case, then those kinds of discussions will help me a lot. I think it's important for us to look at, if we want to be successful as an organization doing that, as a professional development organization, is there a need in the marketplace that can sustain and support building up an organization like this? And if the answer to that is yes, then we move forward. If the answer to that is no, or it's a fragmented society right now, and people are getting their professional development in multiple different ways, this might be one of them. But essentially what we're looking at is how do we compete in the marketplace to make this a sustainable organization to do that.
and I tend to think, go the route of a ward council. Everybody on here is working on something. Tell us about what it is that you're working on, and we'll try to help each other along the way. But everything that they're working on needs to be something viable. So that can,
Let's right now, I do want to comment on what you said, because, real briefly, and then I do want to have some feedback from what your projects are, because we had discussion last week or 2 weeks ago about our projects here, which we need to have more of, but we need to understand what you're doing. But one last comment here, Dennis. When you have a story,
yes.
a story is principle or concept or idea or doctrine put into action. That's what a story is. And when you read the scriptures, there are three things that come out of it. You think of the doctrine that you get when you read the scriptures. It's what it says doctrinally. But there's more. There's stories. Stories of people. What happened? They did this, and this happened, and that happened. Why is all that in there? It's because it's doctrine put into action. And idea put into action. Principle put into action. You take any film out there, any film, any well-made film, and deconstruct it backwards and say, here's the storyline, main storyline, and the subplots, and the characters. What are the principles driving this, or derived from it? So principle is intrinsic to every story, every well-made story. And so if we take principles, gospel principles, we touched on this 2 weeks ago a little bit, but this is what we want to really expand. You take principles that are gospel principles, such as the idea of repentance, and make a film that doesn't, on the outside, look like it's a religious film, and therefore people don't want to watch it. Many people don't. But instead make it entertaining, but the core elements are all still there. That has the kind of impact we're talking about here. And it gets far out there.
I won't take much more time, but I just want to just to build on that. So we've been working with this, and Dave and I have been talking about this, and we've been working on this for a long time. But when you create a film, you want to create it in, let's see if I can make this go. I thought I had it. Okay.
Do you have your audio up?
Yeah, it should be right up here. Anyway, when I presented it, we have creation. You create a piece in stages. Aristotle says you got to say it briefly what it is. And so I would say that's your pitch. Your pitch is this character who is like this, attempts to do this, and the process changes like this, pointing towards the theme of that.
Your elevator pitch.
The elevator,
That's the
I was gonna say that, elevator
It's
pitch.
really brief.
You got 2 minutes.
I don't want to
and
see
an
it
elevator.
anymore.
Or
So I
not.
presented it at LTV, and JD Payne was there, and he said, man, this is just like Hollywood. And I said, yeah, exactly right, for independent filmmakers. and we won't pass you until you go each one and it makes sure that it's all there together. It's not vague, it's tight. And so one of our people that we've been working with is a writer, Stephen Carter. You probably know him, and you know Nick. He's a good writer. And anyway, so he got started in here, and you have to recommend a movie that you say has this right kind of structure. He recommended Mad Max. I would never watch a Mad Max movie.
I've never watched one either.
But I watched the thing and by golly, that thing has got it. It's got a right structure and it's got a theme that's meaningful in it. And so anyway, that's what I'm trying to work on. And I'm going to get these scripts from UCLA, and we're going to approach independent filmmakers, and we're going to say to them, look, shoot a scene from one of these scripts here that has been approved, and then we're going to go to distributors. We're creating this list of distributors, and it's going to happen. We're going to do it. And I want to know what other things the rest of you are working on. So like over here is the left side, this is where we've got a pitch and synopsis and scenario and beat script and all the way through the stages. Here's the main line of action, main character being like this, tries to do this, and the process risks this and improves like this. Bring out a theme of this, lay it in, show it what it is.
And is it short-sighted?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
And it's, so the whole thing is worked out here. Stephen has been working on he picked a deliberately difficult one, artsy kinds of things, to see if he could run it through it. And now he's been doing some videos for us that sort of explains to writers who are accustomed to free-flowing kind of stuff, and ours is so disciplined, how to explain it to it. It's excellent stuff that he's putting in there. But, so it's been fun working with him. But I would, any script that any of you are working on, I would love to help you pull it together and make sure that it has all of the classical kinds of things. And we make the case that, and we've done some research on it with some guys that run these systems for making film recommendations for people, that if you've got a strong plot, if you've got character development, you've got a theme that is pointed towards, the audiences are going to like it more. It's an approvable, shown kind of thing. And so this is what we're trying to do, and we'd be glad to help you with it. We're working with some other people that have got some scripts that want to work on them, and we'd be glad to work it through. And then we're going to go to distributors locally here first, just to practice it out. But we've got 100 other ones that we want to go out to and try to reach out to. I do think that there's a ways of working with infomercial kinds of places that know the companies that value quality commercials, and you have some sense of what they value and why they would do this, that the distributors can work with and say, okay, we want to distribute this film, and we know you care a lot about dogs. This is a wonderful dog movie. And we know that you have values because of the infomercials that you've created beforehand. Do you want to be involved in that? Because I think that's the direction that it's going to go. We did so much work there at BYU with the PBS stuff about this program is brought to you by a generous grant from GM. Well, movies are going to go the same way. This is brought to you by a generous grant from these people like this. That's the direction that a lot of it's going to go.
The underwriter model.
The underwriter model.
Yeah.
That's right. And that requires the people who make the commercials. Yeah.
I was gonna say, because, with our time,
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to come back to what Robert had suggested, because I think it's very important. We have one person in this room who has spent a heap load of money to help make production happen, and that's Tom Taylor. And he is not by career a movie maker. So I want to hear why a man would write a check to build a studio when that isn't been his life's work yet. And I think that's important for us to know, because we start the meeting by saying, how do we get money to make a movie? And we have a man here who is willing to say, here's X hundreds of thousands of dollars to make this happen. Why, Tom?
Let me just tell you a little bit about who I am. Right now I'm working on the Arts Council for Provo. My family's always been in films. My younger brother, Brigham Taylor, who I think some of you know, he worked for Disney for quite a while. He's produced a few movies. And when we were working on the last real estate project, I saw a graph that Provo Economic Development put out that showed every industry in the area by relative size, and a circle with the size of 1 means that that is what you would expect for this area. And digital media was a 4, so it was 4 times more digital media people than you would expect in an area like Provo. And the sense that I've had is that there isn't I'm not part of that community, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I don't have a feeling that there is a community there. I grew up in Silicon Valley and worked there most of my professional life. And there was a community there where people know each other in different companies. They swap companies all the time. Your industry, you use the same people. You need a cameraman. All of you have used the same VP. All of you have used the same hairdresser, makeup. There's an informal community, and I think that there is a huge leap forward that could be made simply in some of the professional development and some of the, I hate to use the word networking, but if you have a concentration like we have in this area of people who are using the same professions and need some overlap, we've got to find a way of creating that pool and letting people move within that pool, and that's going to create a fecundity and a richness of that business. I mean, things are happening right now in a completely natural, uncoordinated way. If this group could help to facilitate that, it could just be incredibly powerful.
What are you doing, Tom, now that we could maybe help you with? By the way, his father was my bishop when I first came there to San Francisco, and the Bay Area and the church is incredible.
Yeah.
In terms of the networking, everybody knowing and connecting and helping each other, it's very, very strong. What are you doing right now? What's in Provo doing?
Yeah,
How could we help?
the 2 things that I would love is, one is the city wants to help this group, but they don't know how. They recognize that this is a cornerstone of the economic health of the area. But unlike healthcare, unlike university, I mean, we don't have a place. We don't have a voice. There is not a listing of, if Provo would do X, Y, Z, we would flourish. If Provo would stop doing ABC, we would flourish. So that's one thing. I would love to be a conduit for what do we need? What are the needs of this group? The city would like to contribute. I've been harping on them. They have, they do different things, and they recognize the organizations in the city that they value. They've never recognized the digital media communities. They'd like to. They don't know how.
Are they starting on a directory so that we get directories of writers and directors?
Well, I think that's critical, and I don't know if they're the ones who do it, but we can ask for anything. That's not something that they would necessarily be good at.
The Utah Film Commission does have a directory.
Yes. Yeah. What I personally am doing with both the Arts Council and on my own is looking for a site for a single screen independent cinema in Provo. And I've got my eye on one now that I have an offer on Center Street. So it could happen in our lifetimes.
Movie theater.
Yeah.
But you're saying the
Of
arts,
course, movie theaters in the age of COVID, I don't know.
drive-ins,
Yeah.
they're coming back.
But several of the things that I was hearing you say about, professional development, the screenings of old local films, that sort of thing would really be interesting.
Some of those kinds of communities are forming organically
Yes.
on social media.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the challenges with creating an actual tangible group is especially younger people getting into it, are forming those communities in social media, and they're finding work that way as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And
So whatever we do could certainly have an expression in social media that could go far beyond what we used to be able to do with Alma in the old days.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about is some sort of an online forum or discussion area where people can share thoughts and whatever. You know, it's so easy to do online that you don't have to physically come together to have that kind of an interchange and ideas. When you were talking about, when we're talking about professional development, certainly that's something that we would want to look at very seriously. But when you talk about the how of making movies and whatever, that is a function of film school. And there are lots of film schools and online courses that we don't need to duplicate that or reinvent the wheel. The why is, and what you said, that I was just watching a webinar yesterday that was put on by the 168 group that does a film, it's a Christian organization, does film festival stuff. They had, trying to think of his first name, I think it's Bob Bird. He's the showrunner for When Calls the Heart on the Hallmark Channel.
Brian Bird,
Brian Bird.
because he worked on Touch, and I
Yeah, he was on
Touch.
Touched by an Angel. He also produced or wrote, directed The Case for Christ about Lee Strobel's work and whatever. And he's, and he gave this wonderful talk, and I recorded it. I can send everybody a link to it. I encourage you to do it from his perspective of Christian. And he talks about, he gave this quote by Mark Twain. He said, "There's two most important days in anyone's life: the day you're born and the day you figure out why you were born." And I think the day we become a filmmaker, the day we figure out why. And he said, once you know the why has to be that you can't really do anything else. You're called to do this. If you don't feel that you're called to do this, don't do it.
Let me just suggest about the school thing. I completely agree, and I worry about some of the LTUE kinds of things, that it's wannabe people that aren't serious, they don't have a project. Workshops, to me, feel better. I'm working on it. I've made a novel. I got to convert it to this. Help me. I've got this idea for something. I want to turn it into something. Help me. That's a different mode than sitting back and explaining if you want to be a filmmaker and all that kind of stuff. We're in the harness. And that's why I think that the focus of this group could be to find out people that are doing things and wanting to do things, and other people that want to do stuff. And how can they be facilitated to do it? All of it, to do some of the stages of developing, producing, distributing, meaningful kinds of stuff.
And a part of it is the inside information that we can share. When I first started college, they said, okay, you got the teachers and the professors and the classwork and all of that. But then you've got the network of students who give you the word. The word on this particular class is the background information that you're not going to get from the classroom. You're not going to get from the textbook about that. And that's the kind of thing that we can share with each other, the experience that we've each gained. And the sharing of that is a part of the professional development that you're not going to get anywhere else. And so I keep coming back to this, that, let's don't try to reinvent the wheel of the things that other groups or other functions are doing, like the film schools and whatever. But let's see where we can, do the why. You talked about, being able to have your message in your story. One of my favorite quotes is from Peter, Paul, and Mary in a song they did called "I Dig Rock and Roll Music." I could really get it on that scene. The mamas and the papas are my favorite, if you know what I mean. It says, but if I really say it, the radio won't play it unless I lay it between the lines. And that's the thing that we need to do with the gospel message. I mean, C.S. Lewis did it with the Chronicles of
See, like
Narnia.
concretely with Tom, he's up against, he wants to help the city. They want to help too. And then the concern is, and he's thinking, well, a movie theater. And I'm thinking, boy, that's kind of small, but it's a start. And then you're thinking, well, everybody's doing social media kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, how do you run a theater? Almost like the Stanford Theater that was there that would do the classics. They would do these classics, and it was known across the country. How do you do that and use social media to let everybody in the country know that this thing is now showing here, and you can zoom in and participate in a discussion afterwards or something like that? How can we take the thing that Tom wants to do and supercharge it so that it will create the kind of effect of LDS influences just spilling out across the country? That's what I would tell people.
I do want to hear more from Tom, but let's do this first and then come back to Tom. Tell us what you are working on and what your needs are.
Internet.
You got Amy.
I do want to address what you're doing very much.
Okay, I'm Nick Mills, and I'm not working on anything specifically right now. I have a number of things that are in mind, but I'm trying to do some other things first. And part of the reason I'm here is to try to help unite the tribes, basically, and work with the council. And one of my expertise is in process capturing best practices and being able to get those documented, like what Robert was just talking about. And what everybody's been talking about here and all the key points that everybody has mentioned is very similar to what Dave Farland is doing with his Apex Writers Group, where he's capturing all the inside secrets, if you want to call them that are the most important things that will help people make money at what they're doing and still be able to get across the key points of the gospel and to unite things that are going on. The thing, I won't go into too much detail or take too much time, but the thing that I really wanted to mention today ties in with what Robert said and with the 4 articles that have been passed around in the email, is back in 2011, I listened to a BYU forum where Michael Flaherty, one of the founders and president of Weldon Media at the time, spoke at BYU. And he had an intern working for him who had helped create the New Spice commercial. If you haven't seen that, you should go search it on Google.
The Old Spice.
No,
The
it's
the
New
BYU
Spice. It's the
parody.
BYU Library parody
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Old Spice,
Yeah.
which was brilliantly done.
Oh, yeah, I
really.
love it, yeah.
And Michael Flaherty had the intern working for him that had done that. And so in one of the team meetings at Walden, they were talking about that they'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, I think it was Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And they had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting a 2-minute trailer ready. And they'd had a few 100,000 hits on that. And they were really proud of that. And there was some snickering in the back. And so this group of interns, were laughing. And so in this meeting, Michael Flaherty says, well, what's happening? You have something to share with us. And one of the other girls said, well, this girl, Raven is her name, created a trailer. He says, oh, isn't that nice? What is it about? Oh, it's about our library. And, oh, how sweet. He's kind of condescending. And this is Michael Flaherty speaking. I mean, this guy is one of the coolest people I've ever heard, listening to him talk. And he speaks with the spirit and with power, even though he's not LDS. And this is a very powerful thing. And so he talks, and then they said, well, how many hits did you have? Well, we had a couple of million in the first week, and now it's even more. And he said, that was the day that I realized that great films coming out of Hollywood had stopped, and that the day that great films coming out of Provo, Utah had started. And it was a very powerful, almost prophetic, other side of the coin of what all these prophets have said, that this is starting to be recognized. Sorry, I get a little emotional about this. This kind of thing is starting to be recognized by people out in the world who are experts in this industry. And he just loved what they were doing. and was really impressed with the work and skill that had come out of this small group of people who spent $500 to create this, and he said, and they even bought lunches for everybody. So, anyway,
By small means,
great
big
things.
are brought to
Yeah.
pass.
And one thing I want to say too before I finish, if I can help capture best practices, all of you have your own best practices. I was one of 5 corporate level quality managers back in the days when Novell, the glory days of Novell. And I was responsible for all of the best practices and the processes, documenting them, capturing them, and auditing them for 2 different divisions there at Novell, about 240 people total. And so I've got a pretty good handle on, capturing what really works and then seeing and helping, and part of it is uniting the tribes, and I also did a lot of auditing of other departments, and that doesn't relate exactly. And things have changed since then, but I've stayed up on it, and I've worked really closely with Robert and with Amy, and with Brandon and Dennis and Dave also. And one of the other things too is that I'm a track head for theater and media arts at the LTUE Symposium, and running the little film festival, which is nothing to be proud of. but we've done some good things, and we're moving. And so what we're trying to do for LTUE is to capture all the best things that are going on in the industry and helping to paint a roadmap for the younger generation and people who are starting out. And it isn't a film school, and we're not trying to be a film school, but we're just trying to show the people and the people that come to LTUE where the on-ramp is for the author bond or the movie creator bond, whatever you want to call it, and to show them the road signs of, what to watch out for, where the potholes are, where this, And so if there's anything I can do for any of you to help capture any of these best practices and to help create a website, even if it's password protected, that we can all see, or a Facebook group, stuff like that. Right now, that's where my focus and expertise is. I've got things that I want to create later on. And one thing, and then I'll shut up, is that you mentioned about, great movies about repentance without, I don't know if you've ever heard of Joseph Allman, who also graduated from the BYU film program.
I went to school with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, Joseph's a good friend of mine, and I've helped him edit and publish some of his books. He has a series called the Mirror Mirror series, and this is pretty powerful stuff to me. It's almost written like an Eastern type religion type thing. The whole idea, the premise is about a chameleon on a mirror. And how do you know your real self? One of the books is called Soul Art, and in my opinion, it never says a word about repentance. But that book is the best treatise on repentance I've ever read. And I think it would be an excellent thing to make into a movie, even a children's movie. Then
What
there's
was the series called? Yeah.
It's called the Mirror Mirror series. We've kind of unpublished it because we're going through some changes and getting ready to republish it again on Amazon. So it's kind of in a transition right now. But if you want copies of it, I can talk to Joseph, and he, I'm sure he would let you get copies of it. There may be a couple of channels on there like Barnes & Noble or something where it's still for sale, but it's not on Amazon anymore. But so there's other, it's like Chameleon on the Glass. There's Ego Placebos. So there's a whole series of things, and they're all about the soul and all about just becoming, it tied in very strongly to what you're talking about is getting these principles across without pound, pound, pound. And it's like, and don't get me wrong, because I love the Man-Type pageant, I love the Hilkamore pageant, I love a lot of the movies and things that we've seen, but the thing that it drives, and this is probably something similar to what you talked about last week, is that when you want to get a point across, you don't touch it and then pound it into somebody's head like they're dumb and don't get it. You touch it, and then you let the Spirit work on it. And you let it grow like the seed inside of them, and it becomes an organic, very powerful spiritual thing. And so there's just, there's a lot of little things that I think I can help with here, like the old BASF commercial. It's like, we didn't create this, but we helped make it better. So
If I
that's
could just give a testimonial, he's got his hands in a lot of things. But boy, he gets super concrete. I was concerned about writers who create scripts, UCLA writers that nobody will produce, but they're really wonderful. And I said, how can we get these turned into novellas? He helped us do this. And we got a programmer on it that automatically converts a version of it. And then he helped us figure out how to go to the distributors of online books, get it worldwide out. Very concrete kinds of stuff he's capable of.
Couple more things, just so that you understand my background. I was a vocal instruction major for about 3.5 years, and hell, I realized I probably wouldn't be able to support my family very well with that. So I changed over to engineering. So I have a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering, and then I have an MBA on top of that. But my technical electives were in editing for publication and technical writing. And since then, I've studied intensely on creative writing, and so I've done professional writing, working very closely with Dave and stuff like that. And I forgot the key point that I was going to say when I mentioned that. It was
It'll come back to you, but
Yeah.
a Facebook and website would be terrific.
yeah.
That's what we want for this.
And sometime later on, we can talk a little bit more about what Dave Farland is doing with his Apex group, because he's kind of taking a combination of everything that you've talked about here, which is, uniting the tribes and capturing, there is a tribal information, but there's expertise from each one. Plus, he also occasionally brings in subject experts from around the world who have an expertise that can help us sharpen what we're working on at the time. So
Just an example of some of the kinds of people that we could, bring into these kinds of discussions. One of the links that I sent out in the email to everybody was to the 1999 fireside that was down at the Westwood Ward Chapel in LA. And one of the panel members there was Quinn Coleman, who, I don't know what he's doing now, but at the time, he was the vice president and head of acquisition for Warner Brothers. And he talked about how, and he was talking to this LDS group, and they filled the chapel and the cultural hall for this fireside. And he said, I have an open door. I'm happy to talk to any of my brothers and sisters that want to, come up with things or whatever. You got to have the expertise. You got to have the professionalism. But let's talk.
Is he still there?
I don't know if he's still there or not, but I'm sure he is probably, has a comparable position somewhere.
one of the
Bill
things,
Draper from my class worked at Warner Brothers and was a producer and
People like-
greenlighted shows. I don't know if anybody knew him.
People like Quinn Coleman or Brigham Taylor, these are heavyweights that can really, add to our discussion.
so one other thing real quick, Robert knows about this. There was an article in BYU Studies 2007 that the whole issue was on film in the LDS world and people related from Utah. And I can send copies of that out to everybody. I've got the PDF of it. But in the last couple of years, Robert and I have talked about this a couple of years ago, and I've worked on it recently as well. So I've taken what they left off, where they left off in 2007, and I've been doing research and gathering as much information as I can to basically update the equivalent of that article of what's happened since 2007, and to fill in pieces that they didn't include in the article.
Is that something that you get in a form you could share with us?
I need to do some more work on it before I could, but I would love to get input and comments and additions. So I think I've got all of your names mentioned in that about the things that I know so far of what you've done, and even the Bright Building, and so mentioning it's like it's you can see it kind of building and getting to the point where we've got a critical mass and starting to, so we can do basically a snowball. And so there's a lot of little things going on. So anyway, yeah, I've got more work to do on that. But
This is marvelous. The scriptures teach us how to make films. Did you know that? There are some great things in the scriptures that tell us how to make great films. In section 100 of the Doctrine and Covenants, it says, lift up your cameras unto this people. Did you know what it says that? Now, I'm also invoking what Nephi said that you liken the scriptures unto yourselves. It says, lift up your voices unto this people, section 100, verses 5 to 8. And lift up your voices, or your cameras unto this people, speak the thoughts I shall put into your hearts, and you'll not be confounded. Verse 7 says, a commandment I give unto you, that whatsoever things ye declare in my name, you shall declare in solemnity of heart and in the spirit of meekness in all things. In other words, it's given a structure or a basic premise for sincerity, genuineness, believability, authenticity, all of that, of which the vast majority of films do not do because they have phony acting, false acting is what I call it.
it's a
False
song of the heart. Heart speaks to heart. And when I say the song of the heart, I'm not talking about music. I'm talking about why you were born,
right,
and what you were born to do.
Right.
And everybody has a song of their heart that they were born to do. So.
And then verse 8 is the promise. And it happens with films as well as with written or verbal or anything else. And verse 8 says, inasmuch as you do this, the Holy Ghost shall be shed forth in bearing record unto all things whatsoever you shall say. So you make a film that speaks truth.
Yes.
The Spirit says that's the truth. And the audience gets it.
Brent
And yes-
Jorgensen did a fireside on that
Okay.
years ago, and he talked about dance. And he said he was feeling
Any
the Spirit
medium.
from the dance.
Any medium, that's
Yeah,
right. And
exactly.
the Spirit speaks to the audience
Yeah.
individually. Now, as we do these things that you're speaking of, that we're all speaking of here, that we're all about, they can and should, for the most part, be done for the larger audience and not have things in them that would make the larger audience say, I don't want to watch that.
Right.
And so we're out to reach that larger audience. And we discussed that 2 weeks ago, and here, this is great. So this is good. We have so much more we can
Yeah, sorry,
discuss on this.
I'll
This
shut
is
my
great.
mouth.
Brandon, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brandon Ho. I've been in filmmaking for over a decade now. As for projects that I'm working on right now, a couple years back, I formed a company, Stronger Winds Productions, with the producer of the first feature I directed. And we approached Jason Fowler from Aerostorm Entertainment and started up a series of Hallmark-style films as fairy tale adaptations. Basically, Jason Fowler and them are completely tied up with the CW's The Outpost, and so we're kind of pushing these forward as productions to create films that could be a different genre that could open up some markets and stuff for them to work in. And so, the end of 2019, we shot Bookworm and the Beast, and that is currently in post-production. We were going to go to Serbia to do the last ADR session that we needed for the film the week that it shut down. So I was almost that one. Who was it that's out in Sweden or something like that?
Well,
That was almost
Sweden,
us in
Switzerland.
Serbia. It shut down like the week we were planning on flying out there. But yeah, so we're finishing that up. We've got about 4 or 5 other films lined up that are going to go within that genre. And we're just kind of pushing through developing, raising funds, getting those all done. We're set up as a post-production house right now and have been moving into production as well. And as for the reason why I'm here, basically when I graduated from BYU, my capstone film project won a student Emmy, and they flew us out to LA to receive the awards. I got to meet studio executives and talk to them, and it was a really great experience, but flying home, my wife and I were talking, and we just didn't feel like it was the right place for us. And so we decided to basically hunker down and dedicate ourselves to building up the Utah film scene. And so I'm hoping that this can be part of an aspect of that. Granted, I still need to feed mouths and shelter children and all those kind of things. So I'm always looking at how I can make a living doing that kind of stuff. But I think that networking and communities and everything are really, really important. When I won the Student Emmy, there was a director that stood up, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he said something along the lines of, directing is a lot like sex. You don't know how everyone else does it, you just do the best that you know how. and you know, we all laugh and everything, but I still think a lot about that. Like, why is that? Like, why do we not gather together as directors or filmmakers and learn from each other and build each other up? We seem to kind of form our groups. You know, we hire our teams and make our movies, and we'll rub shoulders at film festivals and other things like that.
Zero-sum game.
Yeah, there's definitely
It's like, let's grow the pie instead of worry about making sure
Yeah,
we get our hands
there's a.
right order.
I've noticed in filmmaking there is a limited resources sphere, which is, oh, if this person makes this movie, then that means that I can't. And something I love about my producer, Jonathan Robert Andrus, is that he doesn't feel that way. He's all for building up and helping out the community, and he's a really stand-up person. I really liked on our production, we had some things go sideways, and we basically burnt out our actress, and we were in a situation where we were starting the day, and we could just tell that we weren't going to get what we wanted out of it. And so he looked at the budget, he looked at schedules, he started making phone calls to agents. We canceled the day and extended the film shoot 2 more days. And I had to go send everyone home. And it was basically one of those, I sat down and I said, guys, you're all doing amazing work. You're all wonderful people. We've been doing such good stuff here, but we've been pushing you too hard. And so go home, get some rest. We're reworking our schedule. You know, go be with your family or go watch a movie and enjoy the fact that you're getting paid to watch a movie, right? And somebody raised his hand and it's just like, you're still going to pay us for today? And I was shocked. I was like, yes, of course we're going to pay you today.
Showed up.
We contracted you for it. We scheduled you for it. You showed up here for it. We're going to pay you. But I think that they asked those questions.
You
because
deserve a break today.
But there's just so much level of abuse that happens in filmmaking. Everyone's always trying to cut that. And so the fact that I have a business partner that was able to take the financial hit and rework all that stuff because we wanted to respect the well-being of our cast and crew, I think is amazing. And I hope that, you know, as we develop something here, if we're able to make something special like that, I think that that'll be really good for Utah, really strong for the filmmaking community.
Good, very good. Glad to hear that. Great.
You're on IMDb, I'm looking you up now.
Oh my.
Misconnections.
Dennis,
Yeah.
give us your background and what you're working on.
What?
And what you're working on, and we do want to learn more about.
Okay, so I started off in classical piano and got onto the route of stuff, but then when I transferred to Stanford, I switched in philosophy because I loved logic and the beauty of careful thinking. And then I went on a mission, and they checked with me while I was still out on the mission to come teach at BYU. So I taught there for 40 years in the philosophy department, but I taught a lot of philosophy of art, and then I ended up doing the philosophy of film, or getting a film and theater degree over in the theater department.
And the film
Because that's
novelist,
interesting.
the film novelist class that you taught for what, 15 plus years?
Yeah, how to write so that you are the latest level of writing, so that it's very visual, and so then I retired, and then I've been putting together this website. It's called Platza.com. We could use some help of some writers that want. I'd like some people to listen to Stephen Carter's stuff that he's done, which I think is really very good.
My emphasis is narrative structure at BYU, so I can probably help you out with
Great,
that.
that would be really be wonderful.
You should also get to know Amy. Do you know her?
No, I don't.
Because she has tremendous things writing-wise, story development-wise, that
Yes.
are marvelous. So
Yes,
this
yes.
is.
I'm a student of Catherine Farmer and Cracking the Story Code.
You what?
A student of Catherine Farmer and Cracking the Story Code.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about
Oh,
that.
yes, yeah.
Cracking the Story
Okay.
Code.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a,
Yeah.
is that a series or is that like a workshop?
Well, it's never been published. She's been working on it for 50 years now, and
Well-researched.
it's extremely
Marvelous.
well-researched,
One of the
and
most
nationwide
published.
surveys, entire library system shut down to pull the data based on Aristotle and the number and the nature of the parts that create a great work, or good work. And, everybody looks at the nature of the character, of course, that makes sense. Nobody ever looked at the number. What in the world was he referring to, possibly about the number? I mean, is it a 3-act structure? Is it what? Well, semiotics. It took a dive into semiotics and the language of signs and symbols and how our brains naturally process and learn from stories. And we are hardwired. We cannot resist. We cannot resist a well-told story. And she's gone all the way up through moral reasoning, Lawrence Kohlberg, Piaget, cognitive development, all the philosophers. DARPA came to us a couple of years ago and said, why are these stories triggering suicide bombers? I mean, we've got a whatever point fMRI that we're putting people through story on to try to figure out what's happening in their brains, and we can't figure it out. So why?
That's what DARPA asked you.
That's what DARPA asked us. And so we came together and we did the Gaza Strip incident and analyzed it, and just the trajectory of what they do, the intake stories that they tell the recruits, and then, set them loose and just these trigger stories. And it's not anything, I mean, they're poorly done stories, but they are triggers and they're powerful and we're irresistible when you have the right stuff together. And it's
I'll connect you to.
Totally. I stood on the border of.
Charles Sanders
One of the
first
things
is
I
where
tended
they
to do in my classes is I always wanted them to work on actual projects. I just don't want to talk about
Good.
stuff.
Good.
So that's why we actually produced that film through one class and then a summer class, and we just did it. But I'm also just love Aristotle's idea of you do stuff in stages, and that's how you get unity. Plato emphasized you got to have unity like a plant. But Aristotle says the way you do that is you tell the story very short, and then you expand it, you flesh it out, and you know you're going to have to. I've written a paper that I presented at London called Aristotle for screenwriters that misunderstand it. And I'm getting that to Richard Walter. He really is one of the few writers in the textbooks that really advocates Aristotle in the right kind of a way. And I think it's right. Anyway, so.
Projects, I mean, you've got
Yeah, projects now.
Platza.com.
Yes, this one is, it's Platza, it's Platza.com, and.
Now, I tried to get on there, is it platza.com, and I typed that in, and I couldn't.
HTTP : you should be able to get into it. And then, but we're just about ready to get back to Richard Walter. I met with him a couple of times. I would have flown down there, but for the virus. So I'm going to meet with him, and then he's going to give us hundreds of scripts. We're going to get hundreds of scripts in. I think that's so important for filmmakers. And then we're working with a guy named Brandon Lee. We're going to be contacting him. He's a talented guy who's got the right kind of background. He was a trained pianist to start with. And he has ideas about how you actually work with actors. And so we're going to try to work with him. He's got a good online presence so that filmmakers can take a scene out of the script and shoot that thing, because there's so many of these filmmakers out there that are making commercials. That's all they're doing. That's how they're surviving. They really want to make narrative pieces. Okay, this is your foot in. Then we'll take the script with the film, with the scene that they've done, that shows that they're capable of doing this kind of stuff, and get it to the distributors, who will then get it to their investors. And then at some point, we need to help the distributors with finding the right kind of investors. And I tend to think it's through some group where the investors are creating commercials and they have a good taste in commercials and they want to do something in film. Something like that would be a wonderful direction.
Good. You're a pianist.
Yes.
Sasan Second Piano Concerto?
The what?
The Sasan Second Piano Concerto.
Yes, okay.
You know that?
Probably.
I've got the first 16 measures in a script.
Oh,
In
really?
a film script, because it's a marvelous
Oh,
little
really?
element that is part of it with dialogue going over and some of the things that happen. Anyway,
Oh, that's
I
wonderful.
love the juxtaposition of all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
So one of the latest things that we've done, talking about President Kimball and about we've got to have our blocks and so on, is that working with this writer, Stephen Carter, we said, look, with great music, you separate out the various voices, like Bach did, separate staffs. Each one is interesting. They fit together. And a great script, your plots and your subplots need to do the same thing. So we asked our programmer, and so now you push a button and you see the main line of action and all the scenes. Push another button, you see another one, and you can make sure that each one is strong and works together.
This is how he plots it?
Yeah, it's all
On
it's all
contrary
built in.
motion.
It's all built in, and so, because the idea is that ultimately, and President Kimball is behind us, he's back here bothering us, that somehow it needs to rise to the level of Bach. With all these things integrated solidly together to the point where you end up looking at it and you feel this is glorious. All this stuff going together, just like in the temple, all the animals, and this is glorious. That it all fits together. It's beautiful.
Marvelous. Marvelous.
Yeah, what you're working on now?
Let's see, I've got, there's a couple of projects that we're doing. I'm casting right now for a film that will shoot in Romania as soon as they open up the production. We're casting out of the UK. That's been a fantastic experience. Going over, I've been meeting with actresses for the past week over Zoom.
Great.
And it works. It's working well. Yeah, we're attracting a lot of great talent. So we're hoping to shoot that. That's a missionary story similar to Sarato, which is simply the 10 sister missionaries that were trapped in the typhoon in the Philippines. I figured out. My goal is to create, at this point of my career, with limited budgets that we're creating stories where you're rooting for these underdogs, regardless of your beliefs, their beliefs.
You're shooting in Romania?
Shooting in Romania because there are tanks there. We can build a set. They're trapped in a typhoon. The house floods, so we build the set in a tank.
There's a young lady in Riverton who served a mission in Romania. She might be a good production assistant for you.
Oh, okay. And then we are doing a film set in the pre-ministry of Christ. It's about a couple of young kids that stumble upon this carpenter, and rather than earn money as kind of scrappy prize fighters, one gets a little apprenticeship with the carpenter and learns a different way of life. I think that would be one that will be most likely to just cross over and appeal to a broad audience. All of them goes to appeal to a broad audience, but that one we have, the script is done, we've got some initial funding. We were all set up to shoot a kind of a 10-page, 10-minute treatment over in Morocco, and things got canceled for a little bit. So as soon as things open up, we'll head to Morocco and pick up what we left out there. That's what I'm doing right now. Other than that, Harvard Group is trying to bring positive stories to our audience.
Good.
Good. We
Don't have a name yet.
Yeah. I think he's really at the forefront of being able to do LDS pieces that reach the broad audience much more than
That's a great thing.
and others. It's wonderful.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. There's lots of stuff that has been said. I'm not particularly good in group settings, but
again, I appreciate your thoughts and writing down and hope to process calmly.
Terrific, James.
James Dalrymple. I went through IU a long time ago and went to California, worked in Hollywood, and kind of made my family fortune. Didn't make either one of those. But I did enjoy my experience working in LA, and a few years ago moved here to Utah and worked for a church for a number of years. I'm a writer, director, cinematographer occasionally. I have 2 published novels out, and I've written a dozen screenplays. I am working on developing a script right now that I want to make as a feature. It's called The Watch. It's about an old man who, his wife died on their honeymoon, and he never got over it. And he's lived alone for his life, and he's about to retire. And all he really wants is a gold watch from his employer to represent his service. And so he's given this gold watch by the owner of the company. And on his way home from work, it's set in the Pacific Northwest where it always is raining, and it's raining, and he gets off the bus and slips and falls, hits his head on the sidewalk and breaks his gold watch. And the paramedics come and he passes out. When he wakes up, he's not in Seattle anymore. He's apparently literally fallen out of the apple tree. He's on a working apple orchard in central Washington, and he's surrounded by his family. And he knows that these people aren't his family. They think maybe he has a traumatic brain injury. He thinks he's been kidnapped, and they fight each other. He tries to get back to his old life in Seattle. He finally convinces the woman who says she's his wife to go with him. They go back to Seattle to his old apartment, his old job, and of course no one knows him. And so he begins to think maybe he is crazy. And he begins to fall in love with these people. And he starts to embrace this new life until his wife finds his broken gold watch and takes it in and has it fixed. And that's the story. It's a fun story, and we're just about ready to start raising money for it. And so that's where I am. Finishing a script draft on another story that's based on a famous poem you all know, Touch of the Master's Hand. It's about a woman who is a violinist, and she plays or wants to play for the local symphony, and she's extremely talented but doesn't play well with others. And she can't get a job there, so she takes a job teaching high school music at a rural high school in Arizona, where the musical sensibilities are much more mariachi than they are classical music. And she has a really tough time, but she eventually learns to kind of love the kids, and she starts to love the teaching, and she takes their classes to music festivals, and at first they're terrible, but they begin to elevate their music. There's some culture clashes between fathers and the students that won't let their kids play because they just want them to do mariachi music, not classical music. Anyway, one of the students is also a really talented musician, and her father has a violin that she steals from him to sell for the auction that they're going to use to raise money for the festival. And that's where the poem comes into play. So the community knows whose violin it is, and they won't buy it. The father then comes and plays the violin. sell the violin and raise the money to go to the festival. At which she then is given an opportunity by the conductor of the orchestra to audition for a position in the orchestra. Yeah, and so she does, she auditions for the orchestra. And she has to make the choice. Orchestra, teaching high school in rural Arizona. And so it's also a fun story with lots and lots of music in it. Lots of fun music.
You have a music background.
I do have a music
In what
background.
way?
I do, I write and arrange, I sing in a vocal group now. Part-time, it's a hobby. It's a lot of fun.
So vocal is your thing.
Well, I studied music as well as film at BYU, and so I play piano, play keyboards, and have been known to write the music for my films on occasion when I have time to do that. So I do write and arrange. Anyway, that's me. I studied story, got a master's degree when I was in California in film, not film, in literature and story structure. So I really resonate when we start talking about story structure. Those are great topics. So.
I think music background is a tremendous help to it.
I love music as well. I try to always integrate some aspect of it in stories and review.
Very good. Dave, we want to hear from you. Can we take just a brief break for a minute? We've been here 2 hours like this. And then we'll get right back. And Dave, let's hear from you at that point.
Not fast, huh?
Yeah. The whole table.
Okay, let's hear,
Works on all levels of course, right?
Yeah.
okay, let's hear about Dave.
Well,
Here we go.
hopefully I'll live up to my tagline because it's never boring with Dave Goring.
Before you start,
That's a good one.
Yes.
since Nick is leaving, I just want to tell you what an interesting guy Nick is. When he invited me out to lunch, we went to lunch at the Utah State Prison.
Oh, yeah.
They've actually got a restaurant there called Serving Time.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I heard they have square plates and they serve square meals.
Anyway, go ahead, Dave.
You have
Thanks, Dan.
you have a
Yeah.
captive audience there, right?
Yeah, no. That is bizarre, but it's a great place to eat. So
It is.
anyway, I'm a writer, which means I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But I have a penchant for being able to convert geek to English, and so I work with a lot of tech companies in trying to explain the benefits and the value of their product and services. I also, when I got to BYU, I realized there was no on-ramp, no event to really learn how to become a writer from the business side and the various tools and such. And so I started an event called Life, the Universe, and Everything. And, we're
Speaking
coming
of
up.
visionary,
Well,
that's what it is.
it just, in one sense, I'm a New Yorker. And so I said, we're going to do this. And, all I know is that we're an island out here. We're not in the mainstream in Utah. So we got to get those guests to come to us and teach us how to be better. And obviously, we've grown from 45 people in that first meeting to 1,700 this last time. And we're one of the largest professional development conferences for creators in the country, because most are what I call spectator events, where you sit and watch and somebody up front wants a dog and pony show, or just something humorous. But we're there to learn. And as I was telling James earlier, is that we've gone from having just one patron saint, Orson Scott Card, as a published writer, to now where 4 of the top 5 fantasy writers in the world are from Utah. And so how do you do that when you're so small? Well, it's because we synergize together and encourage each other and show the ropes. so that we don't make those mistakes. You know, where people invest a huge amount of time in their starting careers as writers to find an agent, figuring that, not understanding that if someone's going to sign you as an unproven author to be your agent, they're probably grossly underqualified as an agent. Because it's a business tool, and it's not going to be your mother to guide you in your career. Anyway, I just have learned to be able to talk different languages in terms of hotel, convention center, and guest, and so that the whole process gets in motion and stay in motion. And of course, this year it's a particular challenge as we build a contingency and to include video conferencing with Zoom, because I suddenly saw the value of when I was on Twitch and they did this interview with Jane Carpenter. And then her husband came in and I realized who this Jane was, and that's John Carpenter is her husband. And so it was absolutely fascinating. Here's a guest that we couldn't have got if we said, come out and see us for 3 days out in Provo. But because there's nothing quite like having somebody who's been through the wars to tell you, okay, how did you do this? How did you get from there to here, you know? I mean, you know, how did J.D. Payne go from being, you know, this novice writer returning from his mission to be selected to write for Star Trek and now for the Lord of the Rings TV series? How did you do that? Just what are the insights you can get? And I love creators. I just love creators. Anything I can do to help bring, you know, a new voice in, because as you heard me the first time, there's never been a better time to be a creator. We have the power of distribution, which we've never had before. So what that means, well, okay, it means that a lot of junk, but it means the truly gifted don't have to depend on a rich uncle. Just think about it, you know, what that means. The reason there's so much garbage in the 70s is because that was all you saw, was the person who had a rich uncle. Now, you know, sitting right here is a fairly decent camera that you can record something if you're intelligent. So anyway, that's in terms of, you know, my goal, you know, right now I don't have a book yet. The 2 textbooks I wrote told me an awful lot about what it's like to have a career writing textbooks, and that's not for me, but seeing syllabi around the country say, you know, read Doran's chapter 3 and 4. And I said, I didn't want to read Doran 2, 3, and 4. So, but, you know, yeah. So right now I'm just gearing up, like I said, for next February. And as you've heard from Dennis and from Tom, you know, I've been trying to instigate community building for the media world. Because, dang guys, you know, it's they're hungry for what we've got to say.
Yep. And that brings a crucially important thing is, what do we each have to say? That becomes the core of why we step forward.
For each other too.
Yeah. So this is terrific. Anything else you want to add?
Well, let's go and do it.
Yes.
Let's make it happen, because we don't need we don't need a chapel and a podium, you know, but just getting here. This has been thrilling to meet some people I don't know and hear, where did you come from? What are you doing? You know, how can we help make that happen? You know, and because, like Nick said, we're not fighting over a market where it's defined. You know, the demand for content, great content, is insatiable. And so we don't have to worry about how do I create an appetite for this work. You know, they're out there, just waiting. They just have to be shown where it is. That's a different problem, you know. The marketing guys here, that's, you know, how do you create an enthusiastic advocate for your product or service. And I would say Doug, you know, they've got that nailed.
That's great. That is great.
Doug squared.
Yes.
Okay, Tom?
Oh, I think I've done my piece.
Oh, keep going.
No, let's hear more about this.
What I wanted to hear a little bit more is that you've got Provo Arts Council,
Yeah.
and you've got a deep personal interest in wanting to see great, meaningful films out there.
What my keen interest is to see a way that Provo, Utah Valley can work together in a way that makes it like a Silicon Valley, where there are, we don't have networking meetings, but we create places where people will collide, share ideas, review projects, do the kinds of things that, there's, in Silicon Valley, there were places to be, and, most of them were bars. We just don't do that. We don't we don't believe in the social lubricant.
Yeah, let's do bars.
Well, you already went to the state prison, that has bars.
So
There we go.
we need to find a way of, we were talking about, the film festivals are great for reviewing projects that are done. And those are opportunities to network and premieres of local films. But, how do we get those and make it so that there is a calendar so that people can tap in? So that, we, very simplified, we're kind of a layer cake. We've got people who've done feature films. We've got people who are trying to do feature films. And then we've got a very rich student environment and people who want to get in. Those levels are fairly well separated. And even within each one of those levels, there's not a great integration. And I think that the power that I see here is we've got fantastic talent. We don't have a way of mixing the pool.
A community.
And the community aspect. And which is so ironic because we are such a community-based people. No one believes in community the way Utah Valley does. But the Utah Valley digital media community doesn't exist, as far as I can tell. There's a lot of people know each other. I think this really hit me hard. I went to what did the Kaleidoscope did a Instrument of War, that film. And I saw people introducing themselves, people I know who are big in the industry, introducing themselves to each other, known, fairly good known quantities who had never met before, but they met at that premiere. And I just thought, how can that be? How can, I know this guy and I know this guy, and they have never met. That's ridiculous.
That's how we started Alma in LA, because I moved there in '75 and I started meeting people that worked in the industry in various wards, and what I thought, here's matter unorganized. And basically we got to organize.
Yeah. And so, I love a lot of the ideas that I hear bouncing around the table. I think something that is just so fundamental is, just creating that community. And then I think that's the foundation, and then you start building these things up, and those things, a lot of those things will just happen very naturally because of the synergies around the ideas, the different types of professional development and that sort of thing. But and clearly online things and reaching out to people who aren't here, who are logical members of the extended community, but finding a way to pull that together. Dave and I met through a group called 1 Million Cups, where we met weekly. It was a group for entrepreneurs. 2 entrepreneurs would pitch, and then they would pitch for 6 minutes. It was a 6-minute pitch, followed by 20 minutes of questions. Ask them anything they want. And it was just so candid and so fresh. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And Dave and I were talking and said, why don't we have something like this for digital creators? Where someone could come in and say, here's what I'm doing. Technically, they were supposed to come in with a problem. And, I've got to, I'm at this point in my business, I need to pivot, something's not working, and then get ideas. Generally, it was just sort of a, here's what I'm doing, and people would would poke and prod. And it was fantastic. It was just a great give and take. And, organizing something like that could be really fun. And that group used to, pre-COVID, meeting once a week, two innovators. And we never ran out. Sometimes someone would come back because their product or their service had evolved, and they would check back in. But it was just amazing the number of people we had come through. And I think that the same is true in the digital community. And if there was a chance for people to present what they're working on, to see what it is that others are doing, and we had a fairly large group who just came. It was 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
And they were coming to see what other people were doing. It wasn't meant to be an investors forum, but people would do that. It wasn't meant to be a place where new businesses were formed, but that also happened. It wasn't meant to be a place where you would find jobs, but that happened. So it was just, that's an idea of a format that might be useful.
Very good. Very good.
You want to
Next
tell us
step.
about your studio that you own, or is it the studio that you own?
Yeah, I have several buildings. Each building has its own theme. I've got a couple of fine art studios where people are painting or doing etchings. I've got one, the startup building, which is for entrepreneurs. Hide and Fur building is for social media, and then Bright building we bought because several different groups came to us and said, do you have space? And we didn't have space for them. And so we said that there's a building across the street, and we took 5 groups. All of whom had some aspect of digital media, and we went over and with the hopes that they would buy the building and share it. They all came back to us and said, would you buy the building? And here are the things that we wanted in it. And one of the things they wanted was the studio. And we took the biggest room, second biggest room, the clearest room, and turned it into a studio. It's small for video work, where it's more leaning towards still photography now. The fellow who runs it, whose name is going to come to me in a moment, is
Jake.
It is Jake.
Okay.
Jake. Last name?
Oh.
It's just Jake.
Just yeah.
And anyway, he's formed kind of a fun collective, so that people, it's more of a subscription kind of thing, but it's still available by the hour.
Where is the building?
It's on University and 4th South. So it's, I think the studio is about 4,000 square feet. So it's small, for different. Some people have built sets in it, but it's it's small.
Does it have like cycloramas, like green screen, white screen?
Yeah. So it's got the short wall on the west side, and then it has a turn back with the side wall.
Johnson.
Good. Doug, you edited
Yes.
Dark Highway, right?
No. I didn't edit that. I worked on it, but it was Rocco the Villiers.
Also the building.
Rocco the Villiers cut that. And he directed it too.
It was well done.
And then Doug produced it. And that's the first project, right, Doug?
Yeah.
And we're developing. Of course, so my background, just real quick, and I know some of you need to go. I wanted to, for those who just came, haven't seen our studio, and want to see a tour, we'll do like a quick 10-minute tour if you want to see
I'd love to.
our studio back there, our site. But my background is editing, but I graduated in film at BYU, and then I got into editing by accident, but a film called Ski Patrol. It was shot up in Park City, and got into editing because they needed somebody to help out in the editing room, and I jumped at it. And I've been editing since for 30 years. Touched by an Angel as an editor for 6 years. Did 25 features. 6 of them, the last 6 I was an editor. But worked up through Hollywood, through the Hollywood system as apprentice editor, assistant, first or second assistant, first assistant. And then I was on a show with Charlie Sheen And a really bad show called Fixing the Shadow, which they turned into Beyond, it's called Beyond the Law now. And the director, the first two editors left the show. One of them couldn't stand the director. The second editor went on to cut In Search of Bobby Fischer.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Jones, really great editor. So I'm sitting there and I'm the first assistant, and the director comes to me and says, can you finish the film? So that's how I got into editing. So the way you get in is being there.
Showing up.
Yeah, being there.
That was a good movie too.
Yeah. Oh, being there was good. So I finished the show. This show with the Charlie Sheen's in, and Michael Madsen, Linda Fiorentino, and Rip Torn, who's gone now. Poor Rip. Anyway, what?
R.I.P.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rip. So then I just started becoming an editor after that, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Now, Doug, I've been with Doug for 11 years. I just had finished editing a couple shows for Richard Dutcher, his Falling and his Evil Angel, and then he ran out of money, and then I made a list of everybody I knew in Utah. Doug was third on the list. And I just called everybody. I called the first two, didn't get anywhere, and I called Doug, and he said, "Come on down, I got something I want you to edit." So I came down, and I've been here ever since.
Nice.
So I direct and edit. I direct some of the commercials, and Doug directs and edits, and so we kind of share responsibilities, but he's the owner.
Nice.
And so we've got these projects. And I do have a personal project that I haven't even told Doug about, but that I've been working on for several years. It's a story about a filmmaker who just graduated from college, wants to make his first film, and it's a documentary. He wants to shoot a documentary. And this documentary is about the greatest question. So he goes around to different groups, religious groups, and shoots this thing called The Greatest Question, and he asks everybody, what's the greatest question? And he's also on his own personal quest to find out the meaning of life. So he kind of uses this documentary in a way to try to find out the meaning of life for himself. And he has a real tough time getting it distributor, getting it shown, and whatever, and finally kind of floor walls the film. It just gets it into some theaters to floor wall it, and so anyway, it's kind of a controversial film. His documentary is, but my film is the film about him making the documentary, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot of interplay going on, and then at the end, he finally gets a distributor and gets it shown by floor-walling it a little bit, and then because it's such a controversial film, he actually I don't know if I want to spoil the ending.
We'll forget by the time it's made.
Since you been doing editing for 30 years, is Avid your primary
Yes.
form of editing?
Yeah, in fact, I was editing I learned Avid at LDS Motion Picture Studio. I was doing I was just a freelancer.
Yeah.
And Dave Altman, it was Dave Altman who taught me how to edit on the Avid one day. In fact, he says, "You're going to cut this project, and I'm going to show you how to edit on Avid. I'm giving you one day." He's sitting there, and he says, "Okay, it's your turn." The next day. So that's how I learned. I just learned by getting on the computer, and this is the best system as far as I've tried Final Cut, I've tried Premiere, and I just gravitated more to Avid.
Try DaVinci?
DaVinci? No, I haven't tried DaVinci.
People are moving to that.
Yeah, the people are, but my personal belief is that DaVinci should stay a coloring machine.
Yeah, they're
They
great.
can't do everything. I don't think a system can do everything, and so I've actually, believe it or not, I learned the montage, which was tape-based. I saw the first Edidroid from Lucas. In fact, I went to USC into the basement where they were developing Edidroid, and got to see the first. And then they brought it up to Sundance, and for the first premiere of Edidroid, it was laser disc based. So I've been on every system, CMX, the Editroid, Montage, Media 100, but Avid is the best. Avid, and we're all Avid
So
based here.
if you go to LA and you walk into a Post Place or one of the big studios, whatever, and you say, I know Premiere, the answer is, well, you do wedding videos and industrials.
Is that right?
I mean, that's the perspective of it. If you walk in and you say, I know Final Cut, they say, well, you're a wannabe trying to break into the industry. Good luck, kid. You walk in and you say, I know Avid. And the answer is, you're one of us. Because 95% of everything you see in a theater is edited on an Avid. 90% of everything you see on TV is edited on an Avid. It's the industry standard.
Yep.
So you bring it up, meaning you know Avid? You use it?
Yeah, we edited on Avid for Bookworm and The Beast. But Avid was the staple, so I figured coming out for 30 years, that was what you started on and are most familiar with.
I'm glad to hear that. So many people are off track here.
Yeah, although we're always looking at and experimenting and seeing what's working and not working. So we're going to try DaVinci Resolve on our next feature, just to see what its pros and cons are.
Okay.
The interesting thing about DaVinci Resolve is its workflow, and that's what we're paying attention to, because if we're shooting a feature in 10 to 12 days, and we need to turn it around and get it done and out there and making money as fast as possible, then we need to have a workflow that we can just push as quickly as we can.
Right.
And we ran an experiment in DaVinci Resolve. We went and shot footage. We did a production day, and then that night we were pulling the footage.
Right.
And we
Coloring
were
it?
pulling the audio, we
Okay.
were coloring it, I was editing it, and my producer was synchronizing audio with it. And by the end of the night, we had an assembly cut that had color, sound, and edit all together.
Yeah, I know
Because
they're trying, I know
They're trying things,
They're
it's
trying
interesting. It will probably break it on the next feature, just because it's not going to be stable like Avid is. But we're always just kind of looking and seeing what's out there and what's going on and what works best for, our system.
I've heard some different
It's-
things about it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
I won't be
it is.
able to tell you how good it is until we do the feature.
Interesting
But
side note, when they installed the first CMX 1000,
Tom, nice meeting you.
good to meet you, Tom,
Right.
at CBS, the first nonlinear editor system, Dave Graham, who was on our Alma board, was the engineer that installed it.
Ah.
Wow. But yeah, so I was just kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how DaVinci does.
What you just described is a great workflow. One thing that Avid has, which the others don't, is script sync,
Yep.
which is just marvelous.
Yep.
Yeah,
Love using
for
that.
narratives,
Yeah.
for narratives.
Love using that.
Yeah.
But
Our workflow is very similar. We go through, we film everything, we do all our dailies on DaVinci Resolve, color everything. And then we just have one extra step. We put everything on a little portable drive,
Oh yeah.
walk it to the Avid room, load it in.
Right.
It only takes not very
Few
long.
minutes. Few minutes.
So ours is the same, but we go from the Resolve to Avid with just a simple little quick process.
Yeah. No, we've been experimenting with a server-based system. We got one of the Mac Minis or something to function as the DaVinci server itself, so that once we offload onto the server, everyone can access the project at the same time and work within it without stepping on each other's toes.
that is good.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fun time to be in post. I will say
Well,
that.
in fact, when it went digital, because I cut on film.
Yeah.
By the way, that
Yeah.
film I was telling you about was on 35. I don't know
Wow.
if anyone's ever cut 35, but man, you have a flatbed and you have a little,
Trim bin.
Try
trim
to
bin.
do
And by the end of the day, after cutting this, like you're exhausted. I mean, you're pulling film like this, looking at it like this, running it. It's when digital came, man, I was so happy.
Yeah, see, it's interesting because I think that made things way easier so that it's greater for all of us, but I also think it made, and I will say us as editors because I edit quite a bit, that's how I fed my family for most of this decade. is it has a tendency to also make us lazy. Because when you had to cut that film, you had to really think about, okay, if I splice this and put in, is this going to be the right frame to cut on? Because you're not going to want to sit there and be like, let's get 2 frames this way, let's get a couple frames this way. You know, let's put that here. Yeah.
You should see the splices, man.
Right.
This is, oh, wow.
But because you could do that,
But
so
you can only
quickly-
do one version. On the Avid, I can duplicate and
Yes.
1 second. I can
Yes.
do another version. That's the nice thing about that.
Yeah, but I think that there is a discipline that came.
There was a discipline.
From
Yeah,
doing
there
Probably
was a
in shooting too, right?
Yes, shooting film compared to shooting
I
digital.
remember a Ford saying something like he shoots it in such a way that there's only one way to edit it. He didn't want to lose
He's a
control.
smart director.
Yes, but I would say about that comment, and
Yes.
they said that about Hitchcock as well.
Did they?
I would say about that comment that if you're a real editor, you know how to create a film out of all that raw material that could be quite different than the director creates. But it's its own creation.
Yeah.
But the best directors really understand editing.
Yep.
Yes.
The best directors. And if somebody calls themselves a director and they don't understand editing, it's a fiasco.
Yep.
You have to understand writing well. And so that's why I'm writing the book about cracking the story code from a director's perspective, because a director can take a marvelous script and ruin it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so helpful once you're on production, right? Because so many things will go sideways, and you just have to adapt. And I remember on Bookworm and the Beast, we were running short on time, and so we're just setting up, and I'm talking through the DP, and she's like, all right, let's get this shot and this shot and this shot. And I could tell that everybody was starting to get really nervous. And for about like 2 or 3 hours, we're getting all these shots and stuff. And then we were setting up for one take, and I was like, okay, we've got the camera set up this way, we'll shoot here. And I think my producer was like, okay, so where's this gonna fit? Like, in the story. I'm like, okay, well, we shot this, so we'll boom, 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 boom. And then the DP, who's also done editing work, like a light bulb went on. He's like, oh my gosh, this scene's totally gonna work. And everyone's like, oh, I get it now. And and I was just sitting there, I was like, oh. I understand why there was such a nervous energy for the last few hours, because we were, having to really just move fast, and we're just getting 1 or 2 takes, and we're just being super creative on it. But, in my head, since I've edited so much, I was sitting there thinking, okay, this shot will go here, and then we have this reaction, and then we cut away to this, and this idea will be created. And so, understanding that is so important on set. Yeah.
I had a situation, we were shooting on 35 film, 2 Panavision cameras, marvelous lenses, and setting up on all of this, the executive producer was breathing down my neck, and which I understand. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
He's concerned, and I'm standing there with my shot list and my DP, and we're prepping for this whole big scene here, and we have 120 extras, all in costume, ready for all this. And the executive producer's just standing right there, and the DP turns to him and he says, relax, you have a director who knows editing. That's a great compliment.
On Angel, on Touchline Angel, I have directors come in after they shot, and basically we coined this term, editing is redirecting.
Yeah.
Because I had directors sit right next to me, and we're watching this footage, and he says, you have saved my butt. I can't believe you cut this, and it works. It works. I've had directors just say, you're a redirector.
I've heard it said you write the story 3 times, once on the paper, once on the set, and then once in the editing room.
Yeah, that's it.
3 creations.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, we are all creators. And so sometimes people would introduce me, and what do you do for a living? Well, I create worlds. That's what I do. The world of this film, the world of these players, the worlds of these characters, the world of this set, this location. I create worlds. But I also create visions. And that's what we're doing. We create visions. Who creates visions? All through history, who has for thousands of years? Who creates visions? God does. So we are creators. All of us are.
Well, and something I always tell people is, whenever people ask Jesus a question, the way that he taught people was through stories.
Yep.
And visually.
Well,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
reason why is because a story is principle put into action. And so, what a great thing it is that we get everything ready, rolling, and it's action.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get all the names down still. So it was Doug, what's your last name?
Boyd. Doug
Boyd?
B-O-Y-D.
Okay, and then
Doug Fowles.
Doug Fouts, and then Robert Hatch, and then Robert Starling. Yeah.
The way you
And-
say that, I'm like, huh?
Sorry, it might be the mask. We have interacted multiple times in the past.
Well, I know.
We want to set up
LTUE.
another meeting.
Yeah, let's schedule something right now.
Schedule the next one, and then what's our agenda, do you think? We're gonna mull it over in our brains?
Yeah, I would suggest first that we hear from Amy for about 15 minutes on an overview of cracking the story code.
I've got about 8 minutes.
Well, that's
Not
next time.
today.
Next
No,
time.
no, next time.
Next
time.
And
I'll take it, anyone who wants to stay, I'll take you on a tour if you have to leave. Dennis.
I'll stay for a little bit.
and then after that,
Well,
I had some agenda items suggested on the last page of that right there. So, and there are a couple other things. Robert, you were going to say something.
well, I just wanted to share a couple of things that Robert and I are working on. One, we're working on a documentary called Kinship about two subcultures that have done amazing things in the world, the Latter-day Saints and the Jewish people, and the relationship between them. And we hope to be able to broadcast that on the History Channel or BBC or whatever.
Where are you in the process right now?
We've shot some of the material. We kind of went as far as we could on our credit cards and what we did ourselves, so now we're looking for funding to complete it. But we went to one trip to Israel. We need to do one more and do some shooting in New York and Calgary and other places. But
Okay.
we're kind of at that stage where we're kind of dead in the water until we get some more funding. But that's a 1-hour documentary, possibly 2 hours. Break it up into like a limited series kind of thing.
Cool.
But it's called Kinship, and that's one of the things that we're working on. Another one is a really exciting way to change the world, we hope, with a children's television satellite channel in the Farsi language to beam to satellite to Iran and Afghanistan. And we have an Iranian convert to the church who's really excited. He's in Washington, D.C., joined the church in California, and we've got a friend of his who is a former sort of B-grade movie star in Iran. And the idea is that in this land where, the state-run propaganda channels are always talking about death to America and hate America and all that, if we can bring to them Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and a kinder, gentler sort of world, the Waltons and whatever view of America, that we could actually, create sort of a kind of a Farsi-speaking Disney Channel kind of thing for Iran and Afghanistan. And ultimately be able to use that platform then, once it becomes a popular platform, to begin to integrate gospel principles, lay things between the lines, and prepare the people for receiving the gospel there.
You'd think that BYU TV would be interested in something like that.
We have talked to BYU TV. We spent some time there about 2 months ago.
Good.
And they really like the idea. One of the things we have to be very careful about is we've talked to the people in the great spacious building, the church headquarters, about the church's plans for the Middle East. And we've talked with the members of the 70 who supervise the Middle East. And they're very positive, very supportive, but we cannot be seen as part of the church.
Yeah.
Because that would,
Yeah.
put a label on it that we want to keep it independent. And but behind the scenes, they're very supportive, and it's amazing
I heard that before.
80% of the people from the Middle East who are joining the church are from Iran. Because the Persian people were not originally Muslim, they were Zoroastrian. And so we think that Iran is sort of going to be kind of the gateway to the Middle East as far as spreading the gospel.
There's about 120 million people who are native Farsi speakers in the world.
Not the same number as those who speak German. And there's already a Persian arm of the California mission, the Los Angeles mission. They actually have a program for teaching the gospel.
Train
in
the
Persian.
missionaries in Farsi, right?
Missionaries in Farsi. They just created a Farsi ward or branch in Washington, D.C. And so it's a growing...
And Iran has produced some of the very finest films. Trained in Paris, but family values there. I mean, I worked with International Cinema at BYU.
Yeah.
And
Well, at Sundance...
people loved those films. My wife said she felt like she understood more of their culture through their films, but they have a great tradition in film.
There's an interesting documentary at Sundance about how in Iran, Christianity is growing, and it's primarily women who are leading that. And this documentary is all about how these women-led churches are growing in Iran and bringing Christianity in. It's fascinating stuff.
In LA, you go up Western Avenue, and then off to the left a little bit, there's an area a lot of expat Iranians live, and fairly wealthy area. They call it
Sharangelis.
well, just as a just as a nickname. Some people call it there the Persian Gulf.
Oh.
In LA. So yeah, there's a very large audience.
So anyway, those two projects that we're working on together, and Robert's got some other things he's doing himself, and one of the top things on my list of 46 is a project, a true story that happened in my hometown in Columbus, Georgia, before the Civil War. Two men, John Godwin and his slave, Horace King, built the first bridge across the Chattahoochee River there, 600-foot bridge, and in the process built a bridge between themselves. And they eventually Godwin gave King his freedom, and then they worked together as partners for another 13 years until Godwin died. And when Godwin passed away, King, who had prospered, put this beautiful 8-foot-tall marble monument on his grave that said, "This is placed here by Horace King in lasting remembrance of the love and affection for my friend and former master." And that's just such an amazing story. I'm trying to bring that to, working on the screenplay for that now.
Projects that, just a couple of quick titles here. Rattlesnake Road is a feature film, and another one is called Heartfelt, another feature film. Another one is called Reality Check. In development, these other scripts. The Rattlesnake Road is ready for filming, and that's what these people in Geneva were calling about. Got some good things happening there on the horizon. And much more I could talk about, but that's initially where we're at. Amy?
Well, besides cracking the story code and working on that, I am doing a biography for, being the ghostwriter for Christian Apaya Knudsen. He, tremendous story out of Ghana and his mistreatment and abuse, and he's deaf in one ear because he was beaten so badly by his uncles and raised by his grandmother, basically kidnapped by his mother, who they landed in Belgium in the winter. He'd never seen a white person before that time. And she got nabbed by immigration. didn't tell immigration about him because she figured he'd have a better time on the streets in Belgium than in Ghana. And he spent the next several years in immigration jail and learned English and ended up by age 18 meeting President Bush and being taught how to shake a hand if he's going to shake a hand. And just a tremendous, tremendous story of overcoming and giving back. And so I'm working on that biography. We're working with Dan Whitley, a member of the Letterman from the 50s. And very, very interesting. He actually has the original soundtrack that Star Wars 1977 soundtrack for all the Star Wars sounds. And he has the rights granted by 20th Century Fox to those. Anyway, and musician that's sending us, I have working with Hiram Allred, we're filming commercials and things. We've got a car. We've only been together doing things since COVID started. I mean, he's an analyst too, but we're so busy we can't keep up. Car commercial and music video and a product line commercial and a theater. Anyway, weird things.
One of these times you'll have to meet out of your facility.
Yeah, I own a 81,000 square foot building, which is nothing compared to this. It's mostly it's a barn. It's a boarding
She's
facility.
got a reception center, event center that is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Where is it?
Saratoga Springs,
Okay.
just up above the Fat Cats and Smiths. It's just west of there.
You have a good concept with Vault of Dreams.
Oh yeah. I write. I love playing around with stories. So yeah, I have a couple of stories. One that I call my Hallmark, and one that I call my afternoon 4 o'clock special. Any of those stories I used to get. And a Lifetime Channel one, and then there's the Light Sci-Fi, which is 3D printed transhuman on the run from the all-powerful government agency that created her in search of what it means to be alive and life and soul. And she meets a kid that would love him more than to die a hero. And because he feels so much guilt over the death of his mother. Anyway, fun things.
Good.
Do we want to set up our next meeting?
Yeah, the 2 weeks from today is the 3rd of June, Is that workable?